You ever wondered what life was like before Afrobeats? To find out, you want to ask the Nigerians who grew up in Nigeria before coming over to England. And you also want to ask the Nigerians now resided in England, in what is known as the Nigerian diaspora. Life before Afrobeats in Nigeria and in the UK tells a story of its own. You see, if you grew up in Nigeria in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and you now live in England or overseas, then you would identify with what type of musical influence you represent, what type of attitude you represent. Let me tell you how it was growing up in Nigeria. Our musical influences were based on your parents, literally. What type of parents you had would decide what type of musical influence you had. Let me explain. You see, before independence, the British were going to hand over the systems to Nigerians. So they sent many Nigerians over to England to train. This was over a period from like 1955 through to independence and post-independence. What happened is, after independence, many Nigerians came back to occupy positions, having trained in England. This carried on, like I said, from 58 to 78. People were still coming back. There was a break in between that during the Civil War where some stayed back because of that and some generally decided not to come back. The point is, if your parents happened to be one of those that went to England and studied, they had Western musical influences. They knew about chat music, and they brought that with them when they were coming home. If you were like me, that's what dominated our house. It was WAP 9, it was whatever was reigning in England. My dad had it. The same thing with the movies. And now this was a cool thing among the educated kids, because we also went to a school where they built, everything. It was just not so long after the British left. All the kids in these sort of schools had the Western musical influence. It also followed that as we grew up, now into the 80s and 90s, you'd had kids who were fortunate enough to still go on holiday to England, and they kept up the same culture. They'll bring the rap music, they'll bring the soul music, they'll bring whatever music and fashion and talk was reigning in England, and as well as the videos. So that became our musical influence. I grew up in those states, and it's the same across Nigeria, because the British was handing over, not just in one state, but they were handing over right across the board. Now,
Fiesta, let's go.